The market doesn't know what keeps you up at night. It doesn't know when you want to retire, and it doesn't know how old you are. The simple truth is, the market doesn't care. But if you care, you've tuned into the right place. You're listening to Investor Resources, bringing clarity to the confusing world of finance. Here are your hosts of Investor Resources, Don Creech and Perry Sykes.
This is Don Creech.
And this is Perry Sykes, and welcome to the Investor Resources podcast.
So Perry, I know you have had people ask, what's the market going to end up with or at this year?
More often than not, in fact, yeah. Yeah, we always have the same answer. We have no idea where the market's going to end up. Not always an appreciated answer, but that's the one they're going to get.
Yeah, that is true, because basically this is a coin flip, guessing what the future is going to be. Weather people are pretty good now, 2 or 3 days out, maybe a week pushing it in a pretty stable weather environment. But beyond that, it's just a wild guess. And that's what the market is. In fact, we've talked about market predictions in one of the recent podcasts, that the range among many Wall Street firms is quite varied. Morgan Stanley is predicting the year ends up at 3,900, lower than we are now. Piper Sandler and I think Goldman Sachs are both pretty close to 4,600, which is quite a bit higher than we are now. And we only have 90 calendar days to get there.
So something big's got to happen. And like I think it was Mark Twain that said, hey, predictions are very difficult, especially if they're about the future. So that's the problem. You know, predicting the future is always, that's the trick. And it's not good, but we love it. We love predictions. We love predictors. And in our business, predictions are fun. It's fun to look at things and say, where are we heading? Where's this trend going? But by our point of view, that's where they should stay. They should stay in the purview of, hey, we're having a good time with this. Not something to base your portfolio decisions on, though.
Well, when you think about predictions, the modern portfolio theory, 60-40 portfolio, is basically a prediction. It says its implied prediction is that the future will be like the past. So the past, the market has risen over 80 years. It will rise again over the next 80 years. Your problem is, where in that 80 years are you going to need the money, and will it be up or down versus the straight line assumption that most people build their portfolios on? I've never seen a portfolio model that predicts bear markets of major consequence in somebody's plan. It's always an average rate of return, because no prediction is valid. It's just not worth anything. And it's fun, as you said, to think about, well, what if? I remember when I started Investor Resources back in 1990, I had a lot of predictions about how the business would grow.
Sure.
I didn't have a prediction for the tech bubble blowing things up for almost 3 years in the early part of the millennium.
You and everybody else in our business, no one saw it coming until after the fact. After the fact, of course, there's a long line of people that are saying, "Oh yeah, I knew it was coming. I knew what was going to happen." It's like, well, of course you didn't, and no one ever does. Which is, that's that 60-40 portfolio you were talking about, Don. That's the pie chart portfolio. And, they always thought there was going to be some portion of that was going to be predictive. We're going to be able to look back and have a predictive portion of this process, modern portfolio theory, that's going to actually work. We're going to be able to predict where things are going. Never found it. It doesn't exist. It is not there, and yet it still gets used for that purpose, even though they know there is a zero predictive value and none has ever been found or even approached. So there's no use in looking back except just for frame of reference, but there's nothing about the history of investing, long-term or short-term, that tells you anything about what's coming up next week. They're just not related.
there are paradigms that happen. For instance, we've just been through 40 years of falling interest rates, and models, modern portfolio theory models, became dominant in the 80s because of the advancement and the lower cost of personal computing and software.
Yes,
And all of a
that's
sudden,
a
it
big deal.
became easy for a non-PhD to be able to build an MPT model and say, this is how the portfolio should look, without taking time to realize that the assumptions of falling interest rates were totally different than the prior 40 years of interest rates.
Right? Surprise, surprise. Right.
And what was really a very long-term bear market after the 1929 crash. It wasn't until World War II was
Right.
over that the market actually began to recover from that. And I don't remember the break-even time, but it was decades downstream before that happened. But ignore the facts. Just make an assumption that everything's going to turn out okay. It makes for a much
Right.
easier sales process. The problem is we don't consider the alternatives. We build a model based on straight line assumptions, but there are what if this and if then that, and then that has an if then, and that one has an if then. This is a branching problem. Every one of the alternatives has another alternative, and you end up with a very complex diagram. And pretty soon you want to throw up your hands. And let's just go back to an average 8% stock market return. That's a whole lot easier.
It takes no time at all for the predictions to become completely out of control, completely untenable. There's no way to get your hands wrapped around them. There's no way to find out if any of them have any value at all or not. And then, of course, there's the worst problem is you see in print more and more these days that something occurs in the financial markets that's never happened before. Things that never have happened before happen all the time in the financial markets, both domestically and internationally. It doesn't matter what assets you're looking at. It doesn't matter if you're looking at commodities. It doesn't matter if you're tracking pork bellies or large cap tech stocks. Things that have never occurred happen all the time. Those can't be in your plans. They've never occurred before. So no, it's beyond anyone's ability to say, well, you know what I think is going to happen? I think something's going to happen no one's ever seen before. It never happens, and so that's never in your plans. So those predictions cannot be accurate. They cannot, but they certainly do attract a lot of attention, and it's important to remember that's their job. Their job is to get clicks. Their job is to get subscriptions to newsletters. Their job is to get you to buy the next book. It's got nothing to do with whether it's going to be profitable for your current portfolio or not. In fact, that's not even a concern. It's just how much attention can I garner with this prediction? So it's marketing, and it doesn't go beyond that.
Well, that reminds me of another common question that we had when we were doing seminars instead of
Yep.
webinars. In fact, we have another webinar coming up this next week. And you go to our website, iriradio.com, and register for that. But that common question was, this is all really interesting, but what one thing do I need to look for on the chart that tells me whether I should be in or out of the market?
Right.
The one
Yep.
thing everybody wants to know, and there is no one thing. This is the investing in many ways is like a chess game. There
Correct.
are a massive number of potential moves in chess. And the good chess players in their own mind can visualize those many moves ahead to anticipate where their opponent may end up, and he's going to prepare to beat him at that game. And investing has many of the same variables, whether it's the Fed, supply chains, production problems, competitors cutting their prices to undermine you. That's going on in the EV business today with Elon Musk cutting prices on his Teslas again in China. They haven't shown up here yet, but they are bound to be here, which is putting pressure on domestic manufacturers who thought they might be profitable in another 3 to 5 years. And at this point, Tesla is going to win just simply because he has mass production under control, He dominates the marketplace. And like OPEC setting prices, Elon Musk pretty much is going to be the price setter for EV.
Pretty much up. Pricing power is a big deal in any market.
In fact, I was earlier today, I was reading an article about Rivian and their electric truck. And they've sold some, and it apparently has had some good. They've had some good reviews, but they have a significant problem. They lose $33,000 on every truck they sell.
That's significant, all right.
That's a hard business model to stay in business with.
It's tough to make up that loss in volume. You know, it's like, well, we're losing a little bit on every truck, but if we sell enough of them, that math doesn't work.
Well, that was Ford's problem. Ford on their Lightning F-150 was losing $10,000 a vehicle. Well, you can't keep that up. And now with Elon Musk cutting prices on cars, I mean, that's going to roll over to the truck business. And back to Rivian, they recently raised $18 million, and they've gone through half of it, losing $33,000 a vehicle. I mean, that's a very difficult problem, and it leaves that entire business really kind of up in the air for the forecasters about who's going to win. We don't know, but that's the risk that we have in terms of being business, and that's why we look at charts and say what's going on right now, rather than, I think this will work. I think in this case, Rivian has a great idea, but it's a big but.
Rivian's got all kinds of predictions internally about their sales. How many are we going to sell? What's our production going to look like? How many products can we deliver? I bet nowhere in any of those predictions we're going to be losing tens of thousands of dollars on every single unit we sell. So now all of a sudden it becomes, well, actually we should sell zero right now because we're losing money on everyone that goes out the door, but we can't do that either. You can bet that was not in the prediction process for what they were going to be trying to attain. What was their sales target? That's why we think the prediction business is so crazy to begin with. It's not important what anybody predicts. What's important is being able to react to what is actually going on. That's where you can actually get some productivity out of your portfolio by saying, well, in fact, here's what the prediction said. Here's what everybody said was going to happen. Nothing like that is occurring, but here's what is occurring. And we can follow that trend. We can get behind that trend and see where it goes. It's important to be flexible enough and not so set in your ways to say, yes, we need to go follow that trend, instead of saying, well, no, the prediction said Rivian's going to make a fortune. We don't care that they're actually losing money on every sale. We're going in all the way with Rivian. You can't do that. You have to change what you're doing and your approach to what you're doing based on the facts, based on the data of what's actually occurring, not based on the prediction, because the predictions are rarely even close.
So we put that in the category of thematic investing. I like theme. Whether it works or not, whether it's profitable or not, is irrelevant. I just love the concept of EVs, and I hope this one works. That's a flip of the coin.
Yeah.
That's the flip of a coin. And that's the prediction business. That is, in summary, what you said a moment ago. The prediction business is designed to sell newsletters and subscriptions.
That's it.
And bad headlines sell more subscriptions than good headlines, as a general rule.
Correct. So if you're going to predict something bad is going to happen, that'll be in your favor.
That sells more newsletters than the ones that say, sit back and relax, it'll all be okay. Anyway, that's a wrap for today. Stay tuned. We'll have more coming. Have a great day.